I hope you like this. If you do, give it a thumbs up and leave any comments below. And remember to subscribe to the channel to be kept up to date on all my hypnotic bedtime stories. So I hope you enjoy the story.
So as you listen to me, you can comfortably begin to drift off to sleep. And with your eyes closed, comfortably drifting off to sleep, I don't know whether you'll fall asleep faster with the sound of my voice, the words I use, or perhaps you'll fall asleep deeper and quicker with the spaces between my words. And so while you listen to me talking in the background, I'm just going to start telling you a story. About a man who spent all his time running. He ran from point A to point B. He ran from point B to point C. He pretty much seemed to live his life running. And it wasn't that he necessarily enjoyed running. It was that it's what he did. It was something he was good at. And he found running something fascinating. That he would start off running, and sometimes he'd start off running, and he'd be thinking, I don't really want to do this. This is really hard work. But he didn't really have a choice. If he was running, it was because he needed to do it. Other times he'd be running, and those kind of thoughts wouldn't cross his mind. It would just be effortless and easy. And he'd barely notice that he was really running. And so one day he was out running. And he was running down some roads. And they were kind of dirt roads. He was running down these roads. And he had to run because he had to give messages. His job was to deliver messages. And although delivering messages on horseback was quicker, it meant that you had to have a horse with you. And sometimes you had to go places and directions that horses couldn't go. And sometimes you had to keep a low profile. And having a horse with you wouldn't keep a low profile. So the preferred way of passing messages was via roadrunners, people whose job was just to be told a message, and they'd run and relay that message to others. And this person was one of the fastest, and was able to travel some of the longest distances. And people had often asked him what his secret was to be able to run so fast for so long, and to travel such long distances. And he said that when he starts running, sometimes he doesn't enjoy it and he doesn't really want to be doing it. Other times he's okay about it and he gets on with it. But what happens regardless is after a while of running, you fall into a rhythm of left, right, left, right, left, right. You fall into this rhythm, left, right, of the feet hitting the ground, one, then the other, one, then the other. And there's a certain rhythm and a certain feel to each foot bouncing on the ground. And then gradually the feet begin to feel like they're barely touching the ground, almost like you're gliding. He said there's a certain rhythm to the pumping of the arms. The right, left, right, left. And that would go into autopilot. He said that you'd just be gazing forward, and while you're gazing forward, everything would just appear pretty similar, and it would start to disappear around your peripheral vision. And you'd go into this kind of strange zone where you stop being aware of your body, you stop being aware of your surroundings, and it becomes almost like you're just gliding from point A to point B, like you're no longer actively trying to do something, you just are doing. And he explained that this is something that happens to him. That means that once he's in that zone, in that space, he can just run and run and run. That he doesn't feel like he's expending any energy. He falls into a rhythm where if he consciously tried to increase his rate of running, he'd overexert himself and it would be difficult. But he didn't decide that this was the speed he wanted to run at. This was the speed he fell into running at. This was the speed that everything just fell into sync. All the rhythms synchronized, and the running just seems to occur. And he doesn't speed up and he doesn't slow down, because that would change the rhythms. It would change his breathing rhythms to his rhythms of his feet, to the rhythms of his arms. It would change the very slight undulating view that he has around him as he bounces on the ground ever so slightly. There's an almost imperceptible wave of vision. And in his mind, he just keeps the message he has to pass on, just fixed in his mind, focusing on that message. As he runs. And on this day, he had to bring some really good news. He had to let somebody know that their child just had a child. Now their child in reality is no longer still a child, but to them it's their child. Their baby is having a baby. And he knows that's how they think about it, and so he knows what that impact of that message will be on them. And these are the kind of messages he enjoys giving and sharing. Messages of hope, of love. And so this helps him to go into this running rhythm even easier, because his mind's on seeing their face when he passes the message on. On that moment when he tells them, and he sees them say, our baby's all grown up. They've had a baby of their own. Some messages he has to pass on aren't so nice, but he knows that if you go into this zone, the role of going from A to B can be comfortable. And so he runs down a road, turns towards a river. And there's no road near the river, and he has to head down near the river. And so he runs along the edge of the river. And the river's a tidal river, and at the moment the river's out a little bit. And so he's able to run just along where the water will be a little later. And each step in this slightly softer ground has a different sound and feeling to the solid ground on a road. And as he's running, he's aware of the sound of the river flowing and running next to him. And he follows this river. He notices people on boats in the river, some just sitting there fishing, others rowing, obviously going places themselves. And he follows the river as far as he needs to, until it gets to a bridge. He then runs up onto the road that goes over the river, runs over that bridge, and then follows the road down the other side of the river. And after quite a while, that road turns off into some woodland. And the woodland is one of his favourite places to run. The way the shards of light dance and bounce on the road in front of him. The coolness of having trees above you. The breeze you get on your face. The sounds of birds and other animals in the woods. He finds there's always something so calming and comfortable here. And so he enjoys his run through the woods, exiting the woods at the other side, now running through meadows. And being such a fast runner, he finds himself catching up with horse and cart, and overtaking horse and cart. People say hello to him as he runs by. And in his own mind he goes into his own world, but instinctively his body says hello back, and he carries on running, just looking forward to giving this good news. And eventually he arrives at the village he's visiting. And he goes into the village, he finds the house of the couple he's got to share the news with. He finds the couple. He says, "I've got some really good news." You're going to be grandparents. And he shares the news with them. He watches their faces as tears come to their eyes, tears of joy, of love. They give him a message to take back. And part of that message is that they'll be following along behind him in a horse and cart, due to arrive a few days after he gets back. And these are the kind of messages he enjoys giving. He enjoys the positivity, the love, being able to share good news. And before he sets off, he needs to have something to eat. And he needs to rest for the night. And so the couple kindly put him up in a room in their place. They give him some food for the evening. He eats that food, he's incredibly grateful. He goes to bed and drifts comfortably asleep, knowing the next day he's going to be making his journey back to that couple, the one who are having the child. And he's going to be able to say to that couple that their parent is going to be there in just a few days. And while he drifts off asleep, he drifts into a dream, and it's the most unusual dream. He finds himself in a crystal cave, walking through this cave past giant crystals, crystals poking from the ceiling, crystals poking from the walls, crystals poking from the ground. As he walks near them, he can see his face in them, distorted in some, looking perfect and pristine in others. He can hear the echoes of his footsteps in this cave. He's holding a candle, and he can see the way the candlelight dances off the crystals, the way it reflects on the cave walls, and on a small stream of water that's running through the cave. He thinks it's an unusual dream, but he knows it's obviously teaching him something about himself. And so he walks deeper into the cave, following the stream, looking at the different crystals, looking at how he looks different in each of the crystals. And he admires some, and some surprise him. But he finds he's learning something about being in this cave. And he thinks it's an unusual night's dream. He doesn't know exactly what it all means, but he does have a sense of learning, of inner discovery and growth. And then after a while, he finds it fading into the distance. And he finds himself stood in a park. And it's not a park he knows. The buildings look all weird. They don't look like the kind of buildings he's used to seeing. He sees people, and they're dressed weird, not how he's used to seeing people dressed. He sees there's occasional flashing lights passing through the sky, not just stars. He sees that the park is lit, but the lights lighting up the park don't flicker like the lights he's used to. He hears sounds, and he finds his way out of the park, and he sees the roads, and the roads look different. Smoother, wider, with drawings on them. And instead of horse and cart, he sees the carts without the horses moving by themselves. Many of them shiny. And he's in awe and wonder about all of this, unsure what it means, what it's teaching him. And then after a while of sleep, and these curious, unusual dreams, he wakes up, eats some breakfast, and he tells the couple that he's going to run now. And he sets back off, and he runs his way out from the village. He runs his way back towards the woods. He finds himself drifting pleasantly into that zone, running through the woods, feeling the cool air on his skin, falling into that rhythm, aware of the sound of the leaves blowing in the breeze, noticing the way the light dances on the path in front of him. Then exiting the other side and running down the side of the river, down towards that bridge. And while he's running, he has a sense of these dreams, that somehow, being in this reverie while running, he's learning something in his mind. He's learning something internally, although he doesn't know what or how. Then he crosses the bridge over the river. And the tide is in, and so he runs along the riverbank, up on the riverbank, which has more of a thud. He runs along there, and heads all the way back to where he started this run. And while he's running back, he starts wondering what his next job will be, because he never knows. He delivers one message, then another. And people can tell from the way he's dressed that he's a runner. He's someone who delivers messages. And they pay him small amounts of money to deliver these messages. But it's enough for him to live on and keep him happy. But he never knows, as he just wanders around, who's going to say, "I've got a message for you to deliver," and where that delivery will take him, and what he'll learn on the way. Sometimes he delivers messages one way, other times, like now, he delivers messages back. Sometimes people ask him to deliver a few messages backwards and forwards. But usually he delivers messages in one direction, and then finds someone eventually who wants him to deliver another message to another location, and he'll take that message and he'll deliver it to someone in another location. And he delivers the message back that the grandparents will be visiting. And he sees how happy the couple are. He sees the little baby. And then decides he can take some time for himself to go and chill out, to go and relax. And he finds a comfortable spot to sit under a tree, make himself comfortable. He closes his eyes rests a hat on his head just over his face, and with a smile on his face and comfort inside him, he drifts off to sleep.